So welcome everybody. I'm happy to try and provide some guidance and help in finances. So like Alexis said, I've been a State Farm insurance agent now for going on 13 years, and I try and educate as much as possible those needing how to be able to, whether it's car insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance, life insurance, and such. Prior to that, I was in electronic sales for 16 years. And just wanted to get a different change, and that led me to the insurance arena. So I always usually start with an old adage saying that many of you might have heard, says, do as I say, not as I do, or in this case, do as I say, not as I did. I think we all make mistakes, and that's how we learn. And so I educate, try and tell people mistakes is a good thing. And the more that we do and learn from those mistakes, that's how we're going to grow. And that happens in the financial arena as well. And so anything that is done on credit and finances, those are all learning experience. You're young, you're growing, and it's an ability for you to gain knowledge of how to move forward. So as you progress through high school and college and on your own, I like to talk about living on your own, which is kind of could be exciting, could be terrifying, but it is the responsibility, and it can be expensive to live on your own. And so some of the things that people go, I'm moving out, I'm just getting on my own. Well, do you recognize the fact that it's just beyond rent? You have utilities, which is electricity and water and garbage and cable and internet, phone, your wireless provider is not providing that phone for free. To live on your own, you've got food and insurance. That's not a cheap auto insurance as a young individual is not inexpensive. So you've got insurance for cars and renters, clothing, entertainment, maintenance. And then people say, well, okay, on maintenance, what does that entail? Well, it's just gas. No, if your car breaks down, that's a maintenance. And you need tires about every 4 years, that's a maintenance. Those things are needing to be, that's where savings comes in. And so it is a big responsibility to be on your own. And whether or not you're going to go off to college or to live on your own, or maybe work right out of high school, that's a big step. In order to most likely live on your own, you need what? You need a paycheck. A paycheck is allowing you the opportunity to expand and get other things. And people always kind of focus on, well, I make this amount. And I want to kind of spin it to how much are you saving? When you get a paycheck, that is called it. There's a gross and a net. And a gross paycheck means before taxes and other reductions. So taxes include what's called FICA, or Social Security, and Medicare, that every one of us that are what has a W-2, if we're working, we pay into that. In addition to that, we have federal income tax in the state of Washington. And then as you get older, you want to then start to also put in money to a retirement. When you take all of those things and extract them out, and then you get a paycheck, that's called your net. So you have gross and net, and that can range from anywhere from a low of a zero, if you truly aren't making that much money and you get exempt, all the way up to 40 or 50% of your income. The higher income earners have to pay more tax. So if I say I make $15 an hour, I'm not putting $15 an hour into my bank account. I'm probably putting more like $11.80. There's a percentage of there that goes into my bank account. If I make $40,000 a year, I'm truly making about $31,300 going into my bank account. And the rest is basically the taxation, and that goes to help you Social Security and Medicare. As we get approaching our retirement years, you're putting into that, and then the government actually assists you back with money back to you at 62 or 65. Probably your age is going to be 65. So how much are you saving? And that's a critical part. I think that if there's a piece that you take away from this is, if you can learn how to save at a young age, you're going to benefit greatly as you continue to get older in life. If that's 60-40, hey, I make $100, can I put $40 into savings? Maybe not out of the get-go, but that's kind of a good number to focus on. The next subject is probably the biggest one that I wish somebody would have taught me at your age, whether that be my parents, a trusted advisor, a friend, school, or college, and that is credit. Credit is so important today. And that basically is a statistical measurement of your ability to spend and pay it back. The credit score that you have is an indication of how much you spend and how are you paying that back. And so it is very important because everything we do today has an element of credit in there. Buying a car, buying a house, renting an apartment. You can actually get declined from renting an apartment if you have poor credit. Getting car insurance is absolutely, credit is involved in that. Statistics show that there are more accidents with people with lower credit. That's a statistical fact, because those people that tend to have lower credit tend to not pay their bills on time and let insurance lapse. And then there's a give and a take as far as when you have insurance, when you don't have insurance. Utilities, cell phone, those are other things that credit plays a part of. Basically anything that you will be making a reoccurring payment on is going to want to know what the ability for you to repay that is. Credit score goes from 0, actually technically not, it goes from 300 up to a max of 850. That is a credit score. It is not impossible, but it is difficult to get an 850 because there's so many different elements of it. Conversely, it is very challenging to get a 300 credit score. What I see personally in my business is a lot of people in the 450 to 580 range, and that is deemed not very good. If you get into the 600s, 680, somewhere in there, you're probably going to be able to start looking at buying a house at when the time is right. 700, 730, 760, 800, that is excellent credit. How do I get that? Two things: guidance and discipline. I think you've got to have guidance and discipline. Paying your bills on time or even early is extra critical. On time or even early is very critical. It can be detrimental if you continually pay your bills 10 days late, whether that be a phone bill, a Visa card, a car loan. Rent usually gives you 5 days grace period, so it's due on the 1st, and on the 5th it becomes late, and then they tack on another $50, which is kind of a struggle because you're already struggling to make the payment, and now you have to pay $50 more. But that's just how that works. So how do I get credit? From the guidance standpoint, here's what I did. My daughter is 19 now. We got her a credit card at age 18. It specifically had a $500 max on it. I explained to her, this is her credit card, this is her debt. What you want to do is charge something to that, a couple $100. Get something going on that card, and then there's going to be a minimum payment of about $20 to pay that. Don't pay the minimum, pay something more. So I instructed her to pay about $40 or $50 a month. And over the course of 5 or 6 months, that's showing continuous ability to pay. She pays that down. And then if the need be to buy something more, just do that same thing, but don't pay the minimum. Conversely, don't max it out and stay at a max level. That will negatively impact your credit. So in less than a year, She has a roughly 730 to 740 credit score at 19 years old. So that was guidance, and it was discipline on her part to do that. Without the guidance, which I didn't have, guess what? My credit was bad when I went out of college. So that's just one piece. But late pay and return payments, if you make a late pay, if you're 5 days late or greater, in some situations, they will charge you another $20 or $30 or $40. If you get a returned payment, so whether checks aren't being done a whole lot today, but if you write a check and you don't have enough money in the bank, you get a return payment, they're going to lop on $39 in most cases to your checking account. So you didn't have money to make the payment, and now they just tried to take out $39 more that you didn't have. So that's a critical part. Okay, next topic is credit card and loan interest. This is very critical. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, I'm going to jot some numbers down. I'll give it to you. So credit card interest rate, those range on the low end of probably $15, high end 23, 24%. Okay, so the critical part is don't get a lot of debt because the interest is huge. So an example of this would be $1,000 at a 20% interest rate is $200 a year. So I'll be paying $200 on credit if I have a $1,000 loan with a credit card. You divide that by 12, you get about $16 a month. So if I make the minimum payment of $20 to $25, and I'm getting $16 added back into that for interest, the net is I'm only paying about $8.33 on that $1,000 debt per month. That would take you 6 years to pay off that loan if you did nothing but pay the minimum. So that is at the lower level. The extreme is what gets most people. You have a $10,000 credit card debt, and that same 20% interest is equal to $2,000 a year in interest. Divide that by 12, you get $166 a year. Excuse me, $166 a month. The minimum payment on that could be $100. So you make $100 minimum payment, and yet they're putting $166 back on to your debt each month. So you are negatively $66 in the hole every single month. So again, minimum payment is a bad thing on your credit cards. Don't make the minimum pay it off sooner. Car loan interest is a little different. Car loan interest are generally low, but can be very high. And that is just an indication that you really should not be buying that car. Today, given the unfortunate COVID situation, we're seeing interest rates on cars down to 0%, but generally 2, 3, 4%. I also see interest rates at 16% on cars. That's another way of saying you should not be buying that car. You don't have the means to buy that car, but it happens all day long because unfortunate salesmen will sell you that and they want the sale. Whereas most often they should say, you know what, you're better off not having this vehicle. Okay. Luxury cars are much more to insure, especially at your age. A 2018 BMW is going to be far, far greater to insure than a 2006 Honda Accord. It just is. Accidents play a big part of that. Your driving history, credit, the territory. So Ellensburg, Washington is going to be a lot less to insure than Federal Way. I picked Federal Way because that's the largest, or excuse me, the most expensive area in the state to insure a car. Higher crime rate, higher people driving without insurance in the state of Washington. We're the 8th highest for driving without insurance in the state of Washington. So 1 in every 6 cars out there is technically without insurance. That's a very sad statistic. Okay, how am I doing on time? I got I'm trying to I'm at 15 minutes. All right, so student loans. Student loans is good. So if you're going to college and you have a number that you are wanting to stay within, student loans is a good way to go, okay, I can have the ability to go to college and not have to pay this back until I graduate or I stop going to college for a period of time. I think it's 6 months. But they will lend you, the government will lend you up to $5,500 a year, which we have done with our daughter. It says that, you know what, you're going to have a little skin in the game. And that interest rate is generally about 3%, give or take. But it doesn't start accruing interest until you actually graduate college or stop going to college for a period of time. So you can go all 4 years without your loan is still going to be $5,500. And that can happen each year of college. So it's a way to say, you know what, there's a little skin in the game on ownership, keep your grades up, things like that. Simple interest. Now I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to start talking about savings on the savings side. So on interest rates, there is a checking account and a savings account. And you have simple interest or compounding interest. Simple interest is, again, that pad and pencil would help. If you have $1,000 that you're putting into what's called a certificate of deposit, that's called a CD, and back in the 70s and 80s, your grandparents and great-grandparents, my parents and grandparents, they were living on CDs. Those interest rates were 15, 16, 18%. Unheard of. Today, those are 0, 1, and 2%. So the interest rates on savings accounts are very low today, given the environment. But let's say it was at 5%. So $1,000 times 5% interest gives you $50 a year on that savings account. And each year after, it's going to give you that same $50 off of the original $1,000. Even though you've got more in there, it's it's simple interest. Whereas compound interest takes the new number at the given start of each year and adds that number, it increases it. So $1,000 times 5%, you get $50 the first year. The second year you take $1,050 times 5%, you actually get $52.50 interest in that second year. The third year you have $1,102.50, you get $55. So over the course of 20 or 30 years, compounding interest is a wonderful avenue to create wealth. And discipline is critical in that regard as well. For the younger generation, I always like to say, reconcile your checking and savings account each month. Know where your money's going. If you don't know where your money's going, you tend to get a little bit loose with your money. And then it's like, well, I thought I had money, and yet I don't. Or I get that nasty overdraft charge on my record that says, oh, I owe another $40 because I didn't have enough in my bank account when I drafted for Chipotle. Emergency fund. This is, I don't think you can ever be too young to really understand this. And this is a great example today, what we're in with the COVID. And you may know somebody who's going through very difficult times because of it, whether that's work or health or what have you. But a 6 month general, it's 6 months, emergency fund says that whatever I spend in a given month, I should have 6 times that stored away in an account that is not being touched. Because at some point in time, you could have, as an adult, maybe a health issue, or you could have, as a homeowner, you could have a hot water tank blowout, or a car repair, or lose your job, or things like that. And that is where you then default directly to your emergency fund without having to deal with the month to month, living month to month, which unfortunately That is what most the population still does today. Your great-grandparents and grandparents were very big savers, and my generation kind of turned the table on that, and we're trying to get it back. And I think that is coming back with your generation. I think your generation is starting to understand that a little bit more better, and it is in a saving arena versus a spending arena. I'm a big, ask any one of my family members, I tend to try and set goals. The adage, it's called a SMART goal. So it is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So what does that mean? It means you want something, so put it out there. Write it down. Tell yourself, I want to do this by X. Some examples: complete college by 2024. I want to get my pilot's license by 2030. I personally don't, but that's just an example. I want to lose weight. That's not a SMART goal. I want to lose 30 pounds by January 1st is a SMART goal. That is specific and a point in time when you can look at that and go, did I achieve that? I want to buy a car with cash by age 25. I want to move out by age 21. Start an ice cream business by next July, or complete my emergency fund before buying my car. And I think that goes back to discipline, because it happens to us adults as well, in the fact that we are wanting to buy things on a knee-jerk reaction. And do we have our ducks in a line before we do that? So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Those are key critical points of SMART goals. The questions. So I'll close here in a second, but who do you turn to when you have questions like that? I didn't have, while I had a very loving family, they weren't very educated on finances. And so to go to my dad or even my mom, there really wasn't a lot of education there to ask those type of questions. So who is your trusted, successful person? That might be, it might be a friend. It could be a friend's parent. It could be a class. You know, classes are wonderful areas to get financial benefit on. YouTube, I say that I'm a big DIY guy. You can learn a lot on YouTube. Be careful, there are scammers out there, but you can learn a lot. You know, type in simple interest, compound interest, emergency savings funds. You can learn all sorts of things, as you guys are well aware, being in the technology arena you guys are in right now. Get a good loan calculator. There's tons of them out there on your app. There's probably one automatically loaded on your app, but just play around with that. I think getting a good understanding of what amortization works or looks like when you say, geez, that's going to take me 6 years to pay off $1,000 loan if I just pay $20 a month. That's crazy, but yet it happens all day long. So play around with those. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Alexis for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barry. We do have a couple of questions. I'm just making sure. Got everybody in here. So someone asked, do I need a job to get a credit card?
There are student credit cards, and I can't remember. My daughter has worked for a few years, both in and out of babysitting and then a W-2 job at YMCA, so I can't remember, but I think she did have a job. But there are companies and banks that will do a student Visa or student MasterCard or student credit card. Now, the discipline with that is, I told our bank specifically $500, but my daughter's 18 now, and guess what? That gives her the authority to trump me if she wants to increase that. And then all of a sudden in a year, the bank is going to start mailing her increases. Oh, your credit line is now $1,500. Oh, your credit line is now $3,000. And that's where all of this problem comes. They didn't ask for it, but yet now my credit line went from $500 to $3,500. And I have no guidance. So yes, you can get one, I'm sure, without check your bank.
Okay. Also, someone said, how should I pick a credit card? Some offer cash back or airline miles, and should I pay a maintenance fee?
I would say at your age, the younger generation, stay away from fees. There are cards out there that are free. They don't give all of the advantages, but if those things are costing money, whether it's mileage or a kickback 3% on everything you spend or things like that, my personal view is at a young age, just have the card and go buy something and pay it off over 4 or 5 months, and don't concern yourself. You'll always have the ability to go airline miles or discounts as you get further along. But if you don't use the card, and there's a $50 a year activation fee or continuation fee, that's kind of defeating the purpose.
Okay. And someone is asking, how much should I save from every paycheck?
So there are all sorts of rules of thumb out there. I wish somebody would have guided me when I was out of college or going into college, because it was kind of like, oh, you earn $1 and I spend $1.10. That's not a good recipe. So if you can start at a number and stick to that, maybe it's 20%. Maybe you try and again, at 17 and your debt is low and you don't have a lot of responsibility, then maybe it's 60-40 or 50-50 or 80-20 in savings versus 80% in savings versus 20%. But as you become more apt to have expenses and things like that, that number is going to shrink a little bit. But 60-40 is a good number. If you can spend 60% of your paycheck on your expenses and save 40%, that'd be wonderful.
Okay. Should I contribute, should I contribute to a 401k if it's offered at the company I work for?
Absolutely, yes. That being said, when you say contributing, when they say contribute means if you put in $1, they're going to put in 30 cents, 50 cents, something like that. That is free money, and I tell individuals, take that all day and every day. Now, as you continue to get, the old adage was, the term from my parents' generation up was an IBMer. You work for the same company for 30 years and you put 10% in your 401k, and magically in 45, 50 years when you retire, you're going to be a multimillionaire. That's not the case today. A, people don't work for the same company for 30 years. Unheard of, especially your generation. B, I would say diversification is critical, because whether that is real estate, whether that is savings, the market, a variety of different things. Diversify your money so that you're not allowing yourself the ability to have one entity shrink your retirement. And that in this case would be the market. If you have everything in one basket and it goes down, then you're down. You got to wait for it to come back up. But yeah, I would take the free money from an employer all day long.
Okay. Austin's asking, when you say the credit card loan is $1,000, was that the $1,000 you spent during that month?
Either way, whether a one-time purchase or the $1,000, it's gonna basically accumulate. So if you spend $500 in January and spend another $500 in February, now the 16 or the 20% interest is going to go on the full $1,000, whatever is on that particular last day of the month. And most will calculate that on the last day of the month or a certain day of the month. But yeah, whatever is owed, it's going to be 20% of that number.
Okay. Go ahead. If anybody feels comfortable, they can go ahead and type a question in. We're such a small group, I can probably just unmute you too. So I did have a question. I've kind of forgotten what it was. Oh, I know. I've had some of my kids, maybe one or two of them, have told me about an app, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, where if something costs like $1.30, that I don't know if it's the 70 cents that goes, they can throw into savings, or I don't know if you're familiar with any apps that really help stimulate.
I don't know the names of those, but I have absolutely heard of those. And those can be done. Yeah. And it can be done at the employer site, I believe, because you're actually money is going into a certain area, and then it automatically disperses that 70%, 70 cents to this fund, 30% or 10% to this fund, 15% to that fund, or a savings account or things like that. But yeah, that's another way. I think my technology mind says that's too much for me, but the youth, absolutely, they get that all day long.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say majority of employers today do auto deposit into one's checking or savings or both. And I highly encourage everybody to do that. And that is a great way to have it separated out of the get-go. That way you're not having to touch it. You just say, put 60% into my checking account XYZ and put 40% into my savings account ABC. And then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And pretty soon you look and you go, wow, there's more money than in that savings account than I thought there was.
It can be lovely and surprising when that happens.
Right, right.
Is a budget useful? And like, what if I struggle to stick to it?
I think that it can be a snowball effect in a negative way. If you don't allow yourself to be disciplined and stay on track, there will always be something out there to buy, or the next recreational item, or what have you, that says, oh, I probably shouldn't have spent that, but now my debt just went from $1,200 to $1,800. And that just ticked up my monthly expense by $60 a month. So, and that's where the guidance comes in. Lean on somebody, ask them, have an accountability partner. Growing up in college and kind of on my own at a young age, we played some challenging times growing up financially.
Getting a couple more questions in here. Nick's asking, should I get a job during college?
Nick, I think that really goes to what if you go to school. That's a tough one for me to add. I was in college baseball, so I was very busy with baseball and school, and in that order. Unfortunately, baseball was first, school was second. But if I didn't have baseball, and I would go to 3 classes a day and then come home and get on. Today it's the game. I wasn't a gamer, but that's a challenge. So I would say, yeah, you need to have some outside activity to help you. But if you're involved in clubs or anything and you're staying busy, maybe a job isn't, financially, maybe you have to have a job. That just, it all kind of rolls to how each individual is.
Okay, and Austin's asking, what would be a good SMART goal amount of money to have in savings when you go to college?
That again is I think that it can be $500. It could be $30. It's just a matter of what, if you haven't had a job through high school and you don't have anything to obtain, then just having a savings account could be the benefit. But if you've got the means and you've got everything in your checking account and you just, well, I've got it, so I'm going to spend it, peel a large chunk of that and put it in your savings account. So if you go with $1,000, then set a goal and say, I'm going to come back with 800. Or, if you're working, just know that you want that to be going up and to the right versus down. You want your money to be growing and increasing versus decreasing. Because ultimately, if you continue that, you will have to have a job.
Allie, says, to the question regarding should I get a job in college, the university you're going to offers very good on-campus jobs that you can have to work once a week but are still making an income. So that's a little tidbit from her. Joshua, what are your views on the stock market? When should I start investing in stocks?
Good question, Josh. That again is probably outside my scope as far as giving guidance on that. I would just say that if and Josh, I know specifically, with your dad helping you in guidance, that's probably, again, guidance is key. I would not tell somebody at your age with no experience to go jump in the stock market. But if you have a job and somebody offers you to take 10% of your income and put it into their 401k, they're managing that. So education and guidance is very critical to that. That's about where I want to leave that one, because I don't want to guide people in jumping in the stock market.
We had our financial person told us recently that if you had a little bit of money that you're willing to lose, go for it. But so many different companies out there have people and information. They can gather so much more information than you can as an individual, as one person, that, whatever you want to play with, but know that it's a great possibility that you're going to lose it. So I thought that was a good tip.
That's a great tip. I think that the term gambler is probably the biggest one. If you are not educated with, I call it KIT, knowledge, interest, and time. If you don't have those three things to do it on your own, you're a gambler. And you should not be doing it if you can't afford to lose it. But you've got to get educated. And there are platforms out there that allow you to play. It's called play money. So you're making transactions, but you're not spending your own money. But you can see your money growing and declining on the market. But you've got to have the education first.
Tips. I like Barry how you said that, really finding that person to lean in on. A lot of times it's not family members, but could be friends your own age, or friends who are much older than you too, because it's just really right. Someone who you see is doing a really good job, and it's finding those people early.
It truly is. It truly is. Yeah.
Well, give it another second in case anyone had any more questions, but lots of good information there. I like your SMART goals too, so I had to write those down. I like easy acronyms for stuff like that to remember. Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody. That was great questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Adios.